Hello.
Hi.
Hi. This is a performance called Apocalyptic. It comes in kind of three loose sections. The first two are guest performances of poetry, my own poetry, and the first of this is called In Theory, Theory and Practice are the same, but in practice they're not. A Molotov cocktail is a glass container filled with 3 parts kerosene to 1 part car oil. It's capped and covered with cotton, soaked in alcohol. To use, like cotton, throw container. Fire and explosion occur on collision. Political art is 3 parts talk to 1 part hesitation. It's not revolutionary and should not be stockpiled at this time. Thank you. With this in mind, let me reiterate for all the busy folk with places to go and people to eat, that in theory, theory and practice are the same, but in practice they're not. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Hey, that's interesting, but the opposite could also be true. It depends. Is the field of action on the street or in the mind?
Good question. Great question. You can't blow up an ideology, although it's fun to try. How many would-be revolutionaries does it take to change a light bulb? 3. 1 to change it, and 2 to make a documentary about it. Reform or revolt, you can't polish a turd, but you can roll it in glitter. So welcome one, welcome all to the all-new, happy, wicked, Newington Green, Nagasaki nightmare of 3-wheeled pushchairs, where 1 in 10 go mad and 1 in 5 crack up and 69% of statistics are made up. Where we play the game to identify the problem and then go on to identify where nothing can be done. It's not rocket surgery after all. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I guess, I mean, if our hands are tied and all we can do is spit, but yeah, if we all spit together, then we can drown the fuckers, so what do you think of that?
Good question. Great question. The blissful potential of spit. Spit before we drown in our own bile. Gentlemen, pack your didactic diction without forgetting your glorious get-out clause of self-criticism. A poem. All mess, all riot of colour, all protoplasmic urgency preaching its own pointlessness. Ladies, put on your apocalyptic for a nightmare out in the town of managed decline and its dialectical double of tedious decadence. A giant whose dreams of change metastasizes as spasms of spectacular violence, only made visible by a sleep-spoken mumble. And here's to our art performance pageants, selling public pedagogy, commission graffiti, a semblance of a long-lost wilderness for all us Wellington boot-wearing weekend revellers, imitating an imitation of rebellion. Are there any questions? Yeah.
So you're basically saying that we should run around like teenagers in black hoodies and make makeshift weapons?
I'm not here to answer cuntish questions. If you still crave a real adventure, you can always go on a gap year. And I, more than any, incorporate this predicament. When in doubt, order more of the same, or stall for time. As pointless as banning crime, as pointless as a dog on a distant moon barking back to Earth hoping to be heard. Pointless as politics, as pale as a goldfish that's been kept too long in a cupboard. Pointlessness itself gilded in 24-carat God. Pointlessness is violent as a police dog drunk on slaughterhouse blood. Red. I bite my tongue instead of theirs. As pointless as everything I've just said. Are there any questions? Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all this nihilism, it sounds great and everything, and it's really poetic. But I mean, it's just so drab. If you really, really believed any of this, how could you even get out of bed this morning? It is just so bleak.
Good question. Great question. You're right, of course, this is all the correct reading of the wrong book about which I've forgotten to speak. A healthy level of doubt is unhealthy for action. If politics and the arts could change anything, then they'd be illegal. But maybe that's what they want us to think. The wheel is still spinning, but the hamster is dead. Like a ghost in the machine, drunk on soft power. Thought worms from the wreckage. Felt but never seen. It's not so much embedded in the physical, but rather hidden away in our mind's loft. I know this much, that even if we beat them at their own game, then we've lost. This next one is a shorter one. It's designed to be viewed with your eyes closed, and it's called 1 Minute Silence for Its Own Sake. Thank you very much. This, the final part of this performance is a very quick look at a poem by William Blake. So the poem is actually untitled, and it was originally used as the preface to his larger book called Milton, but it was famously put to music by Sir Hubert Parry in 1916, and since then it's been commonly referred to as Did Those Feet in Ancient Times, or alternatively Jerusalem. So Hubert Parry was commissioned to make a sort of arousing patriotic hymn to boost feelings of boost morale in the First World War. And so for the last 100 years, the song's been sung with gusto in schools and assemblies and churches. The song's also been repeatedly used as an anthem by the Conservative Party, Labour and the Liberal Democrats for various party conferences as a hymn to British grandeur. So, as I'm sure most of you will know, William Blake was a writer, a poet, a painter and a mystic. But what comes clear throughout his eclectic body of work is an attitude of rebellion against the abuse of class power and institutionalised religion, and in support of a kind of Christian mysticism and ideas of a universal brotherhood. So Blake had revolutionary tendencies, and in 1803 he was charged with treason for having uttered treasonable expressions inciting people to rebel against the authority of the state and monarch. He was later acquitted, but so he's not a patriot or a nationalist. Also in the preface to Milton, where this poem is first written, there's another bit of text, another block of text above the poem, and I'll just read an extract of it for you here. You probably can't read it from that, but he writes, "Rise up, O young men of the new age, set your foreheads against the ignorant hirelings, for we have hirelings in the camp, the court and the university, who would, if they could, forever depress mental and prolong corporal war. Painters, on you I call, sculptors, arcadels. Suffer not the fashionable fools to depress your powers by the prices they pretend to give for contemptible works or the expensive advertising boast they make of such works. Believe Christ and his apostles that there is a class of men whose whole delight is in destroying." And for those of you who don't know the poem, it reads, "And did those feet in ancient times walk upon England's mountain green, and was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the countenance divine shine forth upon our clouded hills, and was Jerusalem built here, among these dark satanic mills? Bring me my bow of burning gold, bring me my arrows of desire, bring me my spear, O clouds unfold, bring me my chariot of fire. I will not cease from mental fight, nor shall my sword sleep in my hand, till we have built Jerusalem in England's green and pleasant land." Sorry guys. To analyse the first half of the poem, it essentially starts with several questions, essentially asking, was Jesus ever in England, and if so, did he build Jerusalem here? So there seem to be ironic rhetorical questions, and for Blake the answer surely would clearly be a resounding no. He mockingly asks, was Jerusalem built here among these dark satanic mills? No, it fucking wasn't, seems to be his reply. In this part he's also kind of hinting at being against big industry and the newly emerging capitalism that was taking root in the early stages of the Industrial Revolution. How could Jerusalem be built here in this rotten land? So it's a bitter irony that it's the arrogance and pomposity of later British generations that would dare to answer these questions with a yes, making it one of the most bastardized and hijacked poems of all time. So in the second half of the poem, Blake lays claim to the symbols or tools otherwise reserved for biblical prophets. Chariot of fire, for example, is a reference to the prophet Elijah in the book of Kings from the Old Testament, in which Elijah is taken up to heaven. So it's important here to understand Blake's interpretation of prophecy, which is made clear in his larger body of work. So for William Blake, prophecy is not a reading or foretelling of the future, but rather an unblinkered telling of the present. And this, for Blake, is the role of artists and freethinkers, one that attempts to unfetter the mind from ideology and show the world how it really is. Bring me my bow of burning gold. Bring me my arrows of desire. So when Blake says, bring me, it's almost heretical, demanding the divine tools of God and the prophets for himself. He seems to be reclaiming man's existential autonomy and self-reliance, proclaiming that every man is a prophet. Beneath his original poem, he again quotes from the Bible, this time from Numbers. He writes, "Would to God that all the Lord's people were prophets." So this sentiment is again echoed in the sort of second to last line, when he suggests that we build the new Jerusalem. Jerusalem here can be understood as utopia, or heaven on earth. So in the book of Revelation, it clearly states that it will be Jesus who builds the new Jerusalem upon his second coming. So to claim that it's up to us to build it affirms that the destiny of mankind, in this case England, is to build the world we want to live in, rather than waiting for a divine intervention. And this will be done, he states, by not ceasing from mental fight, that's self-education and free thinking. But he also alludes to a physical uprising. Nor shall my sword sleep in my hand. calling for both thought and action. So Blake was never a patriot. The poem's not a patriotic one, and it expresses his desire for radical change, but without over-sedition. So when it comes to sculpture, if in doubt, make it big, and preferably red. The same could be said for performance. If in doubt, shout. So with this in mind, I'm going to re-perform Blake's poem to music in what I think is its original sentiment. I put it to a song called "Do They Owe Us a Living" by the anarcho-punk band Crass. The song was originally written in 1977, and my friend Rob has helped me make a karaoke version of it so I can sing Blake's words over the top for you. We kept the original chorus, and you can even sing along if you like. Oh, and I'm also performing in the style of Steve Ingram, who was the original singer of the song. And finally, this contains flashing lights, so if you don't like that, look away.